common to first century Judea. All honest historians agree, Tehuti, that Christ and his disciples commonly spoke in Aramaic, a sister dialect to Hebrew, which is also the common language in all Judea and surrounding regions in the first century. Sadly, popular Christian teachings deceitfully want us to believe that Greek was the common language, which is also the false reason given to support the erroneous belief that the Greek was an original language of the New Testament. It was not the original language of the New Testament or the Old Testament. Tehuti, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Hebrew Aramaic was also the native language of all Christ's disciples. All of Christ.
His purpose, so what Tehuti was deflecting, you know, from JJ's point, you know, the reason why JJ went into the New Testament and he made a straight pattern because the New Testament was written in Koine Greek, okay? And that was still up under the Greek was the lingua franca, was the language that the Roman Empire at that time, you know, put all of his legal documents in. It was the legal language, and that was in the New Testament. But JJ's purpose here to go into the New Testament was to show that neither the New Testament nor the Old Testament was written by the Greeks. You know, that was his whole purpose. His whole purpose was to say that the only commonality of Greek that these scriptures possessed was the language. Okay? And even during the Roman Empire, the language still was the only commonality. So the Ptolemies was not over the New Testament. He make that clear. But the New Testament ain't the topic of discussion. He goes back to show you that they was not over the Old Testament either. You know, because them being over them, Tehuti is saying, keep harping about this Ptolemy Council, which don't exist. And if the Ptolemy Council don't exist, then that means that Tehuti made up the story and it is a lie. It is conjecture. And it is not a historical fact. Because you cannot go nowhere in history and find a Ptolemy Alexandrian Council. You know, what you can find is through the letter of Aristides. That's the only, you know, about the Israelites being appointed by Ptolemy, not a council. There's no history of a council being appointed, and the council that he's alluding to is that he's defying the fact that his erroneous evidence point to Jewish origin.
Disciples were Hebrews who also
Bingo.
All right, let's go, Tehuti. You got 3 minutes in this round to rebut, and then we'll begin to get into your last and final round. Brothers and sisters.
Saneter?
Yes, hold on, brothers and sisters. Get your questions ready. Remember, just ask the question. That's it. No teaching. We got the teachers here tonight. Just ask your question. And maybe you can call in again and ask another question. Go ahead, Brother Tehuti, before we get into 3 minutes.
Okay, good. Am I muted? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. So, yes, I want to keep it at the 2 rounds and go into the question. I don't want to waste any time on a third round. We're just doing the 2 rounds and get into the conversation.
Okay, all right, okay, gotcha. So what you are doing right now is rebuttaling him.
Yes.
And then we get into the closing out, the cross-examination.
Hey, sorry, I gotta take a leak real quick.
Go ahead. All right, brother, you want to rebuttal him right now, or you wait till we get back?
Maybe I'll start rebuttaling. I'll start now.
Go ahead.
Okay, just this really. Oh boy, this is.
praying that he don't hear your rebuttals.
Let me go ahead and just let me go ahead and do a screen share. This is kind of quick.
Give them less leverage.
To know,
you like that?
What this is right here. This is a tactic that is used in conversations where people try to sway the audience from the original topic, and it's called Gish Gallop. When you present your opponent with many brief arguments to his position across a wide range field, most of which are outside the area of expertise. Gish looks like an expert of many fields. The opponent can't address most of the evidence.
Stop. See, basically what Gish Galloping is when a person overwhelms another person with a lot of information, okay? Like you said, with many brief arguments, you know, against the other person's position, okay? And a lot of people does that, but this is the thing with Gish Galloping is that the only way that you can get out of Gish, because Gish Galloping is not a logical fallacy, you know. That's what he's trying to allude to, as though he did something wrong, as if though it was a bad argument. Gish Galloping is just the term for what the definition implies that it is. Okay, and that's it. And the only way that you can get out of Gish Galloping is to rebuttal every one of those arguments, act like you didn't hear it and proceed forward, or to call it out. But to call it out really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't take away from the person presenting the quote-unquote Gish Gallop. Okay, because it is not a fallacy. Okay, it is not a bad argument. And what JJ was doing was actually just showing the people how the Israelites preserved their language as well as translated the scriptures from Hebrew to Greek in a long period of time. He showed a long progression. And that's all he basically did. And it really was not Gish Galloping. He just was reading through a bunch of multiple sources, you know, proving his point that neither the Greek Septuagint or the Koine Greek New Testament were written by Greek people, and nor was Greek people over it. Okay? And that's what JJ was proving here, and he did a very well job doing that. I think inside of JJ's Gish Galloping, is not nothing but Gish Galloping. His Gish Galloping was full of powerful information that he could not be rebutted. That he could the brother man could not rebut. But JJ has made it clear that the library was fake. He made it clear that the letter is fake. Okay, and he made it clear that the council was fake.
Due to the lack of sufficient time, J.J.7000 has given us information on New Testament, Paul, everything except for subject matter. JJ acknowledges that the Septuagint.
Well, JJ was showing you. He was demonstrating. He was proving his point, and JJ did a good job at proving his point. See, what the opponent likes to do when he's losing in an argument, they like to try to dictate how another person is supposed to fight their fight. They like to dictate and to throw out there as though they were some type of authority, you know, in the match. And you are an opponent, not a judge, and an opponent, okay? You got to pick which one you want to be. And if you want to be a judge, you have to be outside of the debate. If you are inside of the debate, you are a contender, okay? And all of that is to throw y'all and to play magical tricks on the minds of the listeners, to have the listener to believe that he was some type of intellectual authority over art of debate, and he's not. Okay, constantly he says when you hear it inside of a debate and people do like what he constantly does throughout this debate is say and Chris Harris is guilty too. Say, well, what you have to do is you have to prove this. No, that's almost like that is equivalent to being in a fight and telling somebody, well, you have to uppercut or you have to throw the left jab, or other than that, I'm not gonna fall. No, that don't mean that. I'm going to fight my fight, and may the best man win. Okay, and that's what this here is basically about. He's throwing out the gish galloping thing, and that is to divert you from the idea that Jay showed a continual line of parallel between the Hebrews preserving their language and translating all the way from the time of the Ptolemies all the way up until the Christian era. That's what he did, and that was his purpose for bringing up Paul and all of these particular people. And he made it clear that that was the reason why it had something to do with the reason why Paul went to jail. Okay, so I mean, that was a great deflection, but now deflecting is a logical fallacy. Okay? And this is why I say Tehuti's argument is just filled with logical fallacies.
Septuagint, the original one, was added onto. Who was it added onto by, though? What are the references that JJ gave? JJ gave references of it being added onto by Jews, not the Jews that he calls Jews. You see?
Which is irrelevant. See, that's irrelevant. The Jews he called Jews, that's beside the point, another deflection. JJ said that the history suggests and the scholars suggest that the Jews were the people that was over these writings. That is what JJ is saying. And he has scholarly commentaries to demonstrate such. You know, to prove something is to establish your truth by demonstration of that truth. And that's what JJ did. JJ established his truth by demonstrating his truth. And all of that long gish gallop was JJ's demonstration. In all actuality, it really was not a gish gallop. JJ was establishing his truth by demonstrating that truth. That is how you prove your point. You don't prove your point by granting your opponent's wishes. By when he tell you that you must prove something. That is nothing more than an insult to your opponent's intelligence when someone does that. You know, when the opponent does that, it's none other than an insult to the other opponent's intelligence, and nothing more. You know, fallacies, just bad arguments.
About the Jews that he believes fulfills Revelations 2:9, which says, I know the blasphemy of those who call themselves Jews, but they are not, they're the synagogues of Satan. So
that's a non sequitur beside the point.
Jews, which he despises, yes, they added to the Septuagint because that's what Europeans do. They keep adding on to their books. This is their agenda.
But you have not proved that the Europeans did that.
Ancient black
Hebrews, hold up. He has not proved that the Europeans did that. I mean, because the Europeans had a language, was the lingua franca of the land, does not mean that the Europeans wrote every piece of material that has ever taken place in that land. That is just about as ignorant as saying that the Anglo-Saxons wrote Tupac's catalog, because it is written in the Anglo-Saxons language. I mean, it is a fallacious argument. You know, I mean, and I brought that up because it is the same equation. You had African Jewish people who were speaking the Greek language because the Greek language was the lingua franca under the Ptolemies. And the people were a Greek-speaking people because Greek was the lingua franca. The slaves, the blacks, and all the Egyptians, all were forced to speak Greek. So these Africans that were speaking Greek wrote in the Greek language. What hard part is that to understand? And the evidence, and it's not hard to believe, you see, because history repeats itself. And I brought up that example of Tupac because history repeats itself. That goes for Tupac, LL Cool J, Rakim, Run DMC, all African American men who spoke English, who wrote their works in the English language, equivalent to African Israelites, Egyptian Israelites living in Egypt, writing up under the Greek lingua franca, the Septuagint, their works. I mean, the same thing. It is not a logical fallacy. In fact, it is equivalent reality.
So it's not even relevant because we're talking
it's very
about
much relevant.
The actual original Septuagint, not the one, not what was added on.
His arguments sound ignorant in comparison to mine, and this is the reason why he ran to and accepted JJ's challenge, but he did not accept mine.
To it over a period of time, the original Septuagint is only in Greek language.
Written by
up commentary in the
Kemetic Jews.
This is what JJ is doing. He's bringing up commentary. I simply asked a
scholarly commentary. See, that's the difference. We talking about in the debate, we deal with scholarship versus conjecture. And he brought up scholarly commentary, which is a 1,000 points towards JJ's win. When Tehuti brought up nothing but conjecture, the whole fucking argument.
Started this whole debate is, JJ, do you have a story from ancient Hebrews that dates back to the time of the origin of the Septuagint, 287 BC, claiming how they put together the Septuagint and wrote it in Greek? Like,
he did have it. It was what you call gish galloping. If you was just to shut the fuck up and listen to what the brother was really saying instead of laughing and acting goofy and shit, you would have saw that he granted what you just asked, but you dismissed it as gish galloping. See, this is that goofy, stupid shit that goes on amongst non-believers, the tricks and the magic and the dumb shit and the just bad argument. Your boy is full of fallacies. He can't fuck with me. And I tell him to his face.
Asking, where is the Greek story? This man is giving the Apollo Codex. He's giving the New Testament.
And he should.
Everything JJ gives
he should demonstrate his truth
of what happened in 287.
He did tell you what happened.
I said
you're lying now.
Council instead of library. Okay, so I meant to say the Library of Alexandria. This is where this information is found.
Hold up, let me take that back. Take that back.
Original Septuagint is only in Greek language.
Okay. This is the part I want to get.
Commentary in the New Testament. This is what JJ is doing. He's bringing up commentary.
And he should, scholarly.
I simply asked a simple question, which is what started this whole debate. JJ, do you have a story from ancient Hebrews that dates back to the part that I want y'all to focus on? Septuagint, 287 BC, claiming how they put together the Septuagint and wrote it in Greek. Like, I'm just asking, where
you
is
dismissed
the Greek
it as
story?
gish
This man
galloping.
is giving the Apollo
Y'all got to pay
Codex.
attention to what these devils be doing.
Everything JJ gives is after the fact of what happened in 287.
No. JJ said that there was no council in 287. JJ said the only council that existed was in 236 AD, not 287 BC, in which you are lying and conjecting. You see, that's what JJ has demonstrated throughout this whole match. Okay, and that this council is only one council that ever existed, and that's the one in 236 AD. That's what JJ demonstrated. And the council of 287 BC don't exist, never existed, and you made that up. That's what JJ successfully demonstrated throughout this match. There's one thing I want y'all to hear that he said, and JJ proved that. Because he proved that when he said that there was no council. And then what you're going to get is that JJ caught him and busted his head because he did a complete long out for hours. I mean, he had demonstrated, he established council. He had it on his screen. He had it boxed off the word council 3 times on the screen, and he went through a dissertation in which he mentioned in 5 minutes he didn't mention the word council like 20 times. He didn't mention the word council probably 50 times throughout this whole damn video. And watch him when JJ caught him and showed him and proved that the only council that ever existed was in 236 AD. Then he's going to change it and say, oops, I'm sorry. Like, you remember the V8 commercial where the motherfucker slapped himself upside the head with the V8 bottle with that boop, oop, I could have had a V8. This is the V8 moment for dude. The JJ caught him, and this is when he's going to change it from council to library. And JJ has proven that no council of library, no library of Alexandria existed either. Because if there's no archaeological or historical evidence, then it is safe to say that it doesn't exist, based upon the logic that Tehuti is saying about the Hebrew Bible. If there's no Hebrew manuscripts that is contemporary or prior to in full form, then they don't exist, and because they don't exist, they never existed. And the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, you know. And that is what another logical fallacy that you call argumentum ad ignorantium. It's an argument from ignorance, because it is to build a case when there is no evidence. If there's no evidence, it does not work 2 or 4. Okay? If there's no evidence, you have nothing, and you have to leave it at that. Okay? That's what an intellectual would do. But to build a case off of nothing is an argument from ignorance.
I said council instead of library. Okay, so I want to say that I meant to say the Library of Alexandria. This is where this information is found. The Library of Alexandria goes back to the time of the Ptolemies and back to the time of the Septuagint. The Septuagint.
Now we're going to go to where I asked him and focus when I called in and asked him. I asked him the question, is there any historical and or archaeological evidence of, I should have said, Alexander the Great, because there's no historical or archaeological evidence that he ever even existed. And most of the writings of Alexander the Great is looked at as romantic satire, okay, satire, okay. And the best writings about Alexander the Great are Greco surviving records and the records of the Apocrypha, the Book of Maccabees, okay, which is still Hebrew writings. Hebrew writings have preserved the best histories you're going to find about Alexander the Great. And the best histories you're going to get about Alexander the Great is recorded in the books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, as well as Flavius Josephus' writings, the Antiquity of the Jews. Okay, so we got him on here deflecting and changing and lying. JJ called him, and he right there is where he lost the debate at. Because his whole premise was on the Alexandrian Council, and he slapped himself upside the head and said, oops, I meant to say library. And when I asked him, is there any archaeological and or historical evidence that this Alexandria library ever existed, and the quote, I said credible historical evidence, and he said no. So he built his whole premise of this Alexandrian library and this Alexandrian library and this council all off of a lie, a myth. You know what I'm saying? A legend, a myth. that he said was a legend. Okay? Now, he's worse than a Christian walking around here preaching Jesus Christ that he called a myth and a legend. Okay? And it's ridiculous and it's sad. You understand what I'm saying? You know, going over to the Jabari page, y'all, and check out that European scholar going in on Jabari and neo-Kemetic. It's ridiculous how they attack Christians and Muslims and Israelites. And they're guilty. They are nothing more than a dirty pot calling the clean kettle black.